this one's kind of, I think, speculative, but it would be pretty big if it was to happen. All right, so Dano writes the story for light reading. AT&T could buy more AWS-3 spectrum next year. Let's see what he's got to say on this. According to Blair Levin, who is a policy advisor, this is one of the most connected people in the industry, says AT&T is the most likely, when referencing an auction of some AWS-3 spectrum next year. AT&T would bid heavily into that spectrum. It has less mid-band spectrum than peers, suggesting it will have the strongest appetite for the license in re-auction. If I remember correctly, if this is with the AWS-3, I think it is, this is the AWS-3 that Dish had to relinquish because they tried to play the FCC, hiding their business name as an LLC or a small regional provider to get some kind of like a discount through the government subsidy program. They got caught and they had to give it up. If I remember that this is that particular spectrum. But, you know, I think about AT&T's current position, and I think about how valuable this spectrum is. These spectrum licenses, the AWS ones, were the ones that actually ushered in like high resolution video on our smartphones. It was AWS. So if you think back to like 2014, 2015, that's when we started watching videos on our phones all the time. That's when like all the apps, the video apps started taking off. The video calling started taking off. You know, remember Vines, and you know, after that it was like TikTok and all that. It was the AWS-3 spectrum that brought that to the table because it was high powered, it had good reach, it worked indoors, but we had bandwidth in the channels. Right? So like 20 megahertz of band 66 and all those things. Now this particular spectrum, if it becomes available, this guy's saying AT&T is the most hungry. Moose, you just came in here. There's a moose sighting, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think, sir, about this story?
We got a moose sighting. By the way, just so you know, I'm on my way to El Paso right now. Testing out T-Mobile right now, this leg of the stretch. You know, Boston, Chicago, New York City. Okay. New York City, the #1 market in terms of population. Chicago, arguably number 3 or 4 now, because it seems like Dallas is more populous than Chicago. And Boston is in the top 15. At least top 15.
Oh, they done moved up, huh?
At least top 15, right? Boston. Right. I don't know exact numbers.
Okay.
But it's definitely going to go for several $billion. Several. I can almost guarantee it.
I agree.
And it all depends on how many megahertz we're talking about. If it's only 15 megahertz that's up for grabs, and it's contiguous with the 10 that's already on air with AT&T.
Right.
Oh man, they're gonna go hard.
But here's the thing, Moose: are the radios that are up on the network now capable of going beyond?
Yes, and I'll tell you how. Do you guys remember during the true pandemic, like 2020?
Yeah, they were using additional licenses. That's right.
They did the additional AWS megahertz frequencies, even AWS-4. Verizon and AT&T split it in New York City. They did a test of it, and obviously they deployed it. The majority of the Nokia radios back in the day, right? Wow. Because remember, that was Nokia. Back in the day. Yeah. They were able to do both AWS-3 and AWS-4, and on average, both Verizon and AT&T increased their average speed by 40 Mbps back then.
And that's with
usage. Right, and that was with usage. But then in the present day, if you were to do that same thing, it would be way more than 40%. Because if I remember correctly, Ricky and I, we did and Zero Cool, we did a mathematical calculation, okay? With the technologies that are the new baseband units and putting it on NR, right? And the additional carrier aggregation, it actually is going to be closer to a 35% increase in capacity, not just a 30 to 40 Mbps. Okay.
So the technology and it's all come together.
Well, I mean, you also have to think about it. You're gonna have to push AWS all to NR in order to get the full capabilities. Because now instead of only getting a 10 by 10 slice, you're now pushing close to a 30 by 30 slice. That's actually pretty good.
I think for AT&T's sake, it's the fact that they already have the radios up on these sites. It's instant capacity.
Instant. And that's what Stanky was saying, right? Is that like it's cheaper to add additional megahertz to an existing site because this radio is already there, everything's ready to go. You're just reconfiguring these frequencies that it's transmitting versus buying 3.1, because first of all, we don't even know when 3.1 is coming, and number two, it's going to require a new radio and a new antenna. Same thing with 4.9. It's going to take some time to go to every single cell site, climb it, all that stuff. But if you already have AWS3 / AWS4 radios on all the Ericsson cell sites, then you're ready to go.